What if things went differently in the MCU Phase 3? In the last 3 weeks, I talked about potential what ifs for the first and second phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and today, I'll finish that series with the third phase. The third phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe began in 2016 with Captain America: Civil War and ended with Spider-Man: Far From Home in 2019. It is the only phase with two Avengers movies, namely Avengers: Infinity War in 2018 and Avengers: Endgame in 2019, which are the two most successful Marvel movies to this date. But what if that didn't happen? What if things went differently in the MCU Phase 3? What if Heisenberg was in Civil War? In this timeline, Tony decides to recruit Walter Hartwell White aka Heisenberg to fight Cap in the Leipzig-Halle airport. Heisenberg would use his pizza to cut off Sam's head and then blew up Wanda and Clint. With a car, he drove over Bucky and Steve before finally killing Scott with his shoe. Team Cap is dead, and Tony realizes that he unleashed a monster. He demands that Walter leaves, which he eventually does. He also prohibits Peter from ever meeting with him again, let alone to cook meth with him. Natasha can't believe what she has seen and leaves the others, as she prefers to go into hiding and spend another minute with the man that killed her friends. A heartbroken Vision also leaves the scene, and seeing that he got what he wanted, T'Challa does so as well. Only Tony, Rhodey, and Peter are left. The events of Spider-Man: Homecoming, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and Thor: Ragnarok and Black Panther happen just like in our own timeline. In 2018, Bruce lands in the Sanctum Sanctorum and warns about Thanos, and Doctor Strange calls Tony, who also called Vision, as he is in New York, and also Rhodey. All four members of the Black Order would arrive in New York, and would start to kick ass. Ebony Maw is quickly able to defeat Doctor Strange and Wong, and Cull Obsidian fights Tony and Rhodey. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive defeat Vision, and while Corvus tried to remove the stone, a pizza cut of his head. The other three, especially Proxima, were shocked, and in came Walter White. Before Proxima could do anything, he pulled out his gun and shoot at her until he had no ammo left. Cull Obsidian runs at him, and Heisenberg throws a bag full of what seems to be meth, and he explodes. With his car key, he activates his car machine gun and turns Ebony Maw into Swiss cheese. Realizing that they have no other option, they align with him again. Later, Thanos arrives on Earth with 4 Infinity Stones and finds both of them being on the lap of an old man in a wheelchair. He laughs and says that it is too easy and takes the stones. The old man then starts to ring a bell and he explodes. The Avengers think they won, but Thanos survived the attack. He says that now, with the power of the Infinity Stones, he'll kill 50% of all life. He snaps, but nothing happens. Walter then says that he got one part of that wrong, namely that those are not stones. Thanos looks at the gauntlet, and in fact, those are just meth in different colors, and Walter has the stones. He uses the stones to kill Thanos. He then says that he is the one who knocks and snaps. The snap kills the entire drug cartel and puts millions, if not billions of dollars on his family's bank account. He then dies with Baby Blue playing in the background. In this timeline, all of Team Cap dies, and Heisenberg would be the one to kill Thanos. What if the Asgardians made it to Earth? In this timeline, the Asgardians are not intercepted by Thanos and make it to Earth and form New Asgard, somewhere in Norway. The Avengers are happy to see Thor again, but not so much seeing Loki. Thor would explain that Loki is good now, this time for real, but the others, especially Doctor Strange, keep their suspicions. In 2018, Ebony and Cull attack New York and Proxima and Corvus Edinburgh. The Chitauri would launch an attack on New Asgard, but like the other two, it ends in failure. Thor meets with the Avengers, and they decide to go to Wakanda. Thanos meanwhile found the Reality Stone, and eventually found Gamora. He kills the Guardians and sacrifices her for the Soul Stone. With his spaceship, he eventually makes it to Titan, and still fights the Avengers and exchanges Tony's life for the Time Stone. He then makes his way to Earth, but without the Space Stone it takes its while. The Avengers, Wakandans and Asgardians, meanwhile manage to defeat the Outriders and the Black Order. Shortly thereafter, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Nebula arrive. Shuri managed to remove the Mind Stone from Vision without killing him, but without the Mind Stone he lost almost all of his abilities. Just after this was done, Thanos arrived, and he loves the Infinity Stones, so he picked up the Tesseract and admires it, and then Loki transformed back into himself and was like, "Blah, it's me," and stabbed Thanos in the neck. He falls back and starts to bleed. The Avengers then attack him and manage to kill him, with Nebula landing the final blow. With that, Loki got the trust from Doctor Strange and the other Avengers. They wanted to destroy the Infinity Stones, but Doctor Strange told them that they can't. They decide to keep the Tesseract, Eye of Agamotto, and Mind Stone on Earth, return the Soul Stone to Vormir. Let the gods watch for the ether, and let Captain Marvel protect the orb. In this timeline, Loki and half of the Asgardians wouldn't have died, and Thanos wouldn't have managed to snap. What if the other half got snaped? In this timeline, when Thanos snaped, it is those that survived that died, and those that died that survived, but Thanos survives either way. Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, Drax and Mantis return thanks to Strange, and he has to explain that things went differently as he planned to, as Tony had to survive. They eventually find Thanos. Black Panther jumps at him and holds his arm open, which was then kept open by the Cloak, Strange and Spidey. Wanda then used her magic on his other arm, and Groot cuts of his arm. Sam and Bucky on his side arrive, but when Mantis turned the gauntlet around, she finds that the stones are gone, and he still explains what he has done. Wanda was then furious and disintegrated him. She simply says that he is gone, reduced to atoms. In the following 5 years, the events of Spider-Man, Far From Home and Spider-Man, No Way Home still happen. While still keeping his secret identity to his friends, Spider-Man eventually reveals to the Avengers who he is. WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness also happen, and Wanda survived the accident. Feeling ashamed for what she has done and still being sad over all the losses, she isolates herself from others. After 5 years of studying the quantum realm, Hank Pym discovered time travel, and Hope is quick to tell the Avengers about it. They assemble everyone, with Wanda being the hardest to get. After Sam said that they have a TV at the Avengers compound, she agreed to come with them. In the time travel heist, Sam and Bucky go to the Second World War. Bucky disguises himself as a Nazi, and James Barnes goes with the name Johann Bauer. Sam goes as an American soldier for obvious reasons. Sam has a conversation with Steve without Steve knowing who he is, so basically like Tony with Howard. He calls himself Steve Fury. Bucky managed to take the Tesseract and teleported himself away. He contacts Sam, and they go back. In 2014, Mantis and Drax go to nowhere for the Reality Stone. Mantis makes the Collector fall asleep, and Drax takes the ether. With that, they go again. That same year, Quill and Groot go to Morag for the Power Stone. Groot knocks 2014 Quill out, and 2023 Quill takes the orb. He then gives it to Groot. Groot returns, but Quill wants to see Gamora and finds her, but she is still working for Thanos and brings him to him. Through his mask they learn what happened, and Nebula uses some technology to look and sound like Quill and goes to 2023. T'Challa and Shuri go to Vormir for the Soul Stone, and Red Skull tells them that they have to sacrifice one for the Soul Stone. T'Challa says that he is sure Shuri will be a great Black Panther. She just realizes what he means with that, but it was too late. He pushed her away and jumped to his death. Shuri got the Soul Stone. In 2015, Strange and Peter go to Nepal and meet the Ancient One. She notes that he is 1 year too early, which shocks him. He explains that he needs the stone and promises to return it, after which she hands it over. Meanwhile, Peter was touching things that he shouldn't until the cloak had enough and wrapped itself around his arms and lifted them up. They then return. Lastly, Hope and Wanda go for the Mind Stone in Sokovia. Seeing her old home again, Wanda got distracted, and Hope had to drag her to the Hydra facility, occupied by Ultron. Hope tells Wanda to wait for her to return with the scepter, but as she waited, she was spotted by Pietro, who initially thought this was his timeline's Wanda. But seeing her brother for the first time in 8 years again, Wanda starts to cry and tells him about everything in the last 8 years, so basically the equivalent of Thor's conversation with Frigga. Their conversation was cut short by Hope, who was chased by Ultron sentries, and they both go back to 2023. In 2023, Shuri assembles a Viburnum gauntlet, and they insert all Infinity Stones. Wanda wanted to be the one who snaps, but Doctor Strange wouldn't let her as it would kill her, which she didn't care. Groot then pushed both of them aside and took the gauntlet. He snaped and brought back everyone. Just then Thanos blew everything up and Doctor Strange escaped in a portal. Bucky found the gauntlet and ran away with it. Groot holds up the building so it doesn't crush Drax, Mantis, and Shuri with Hope on her way. Peter, Wanda, and Sam would combat Thanos. Wanda accidentally knocked out Peter, then Thanos almost killed her with his sword before Sam intervened with Cap's shield. Thanos, however, just destroyed it and hurled him away. Cap then said, "On your left." To Sam, and all the Avengers came, soon followed by Wasp with the Guardians and Shuri. Thor, who is still fit, and Jane, who has Mjolnir, managed to kill Thanos, and just as the Black Order wanted to retreat, their ship was destroyed by Carol. Gamora still becomes good, and has to kill her sister, and Jane dies in this battle. Sam would be the one to return the stones. In this timeline, the dusted Avengers get the stone, and with Thor not being fatty, he manages to kill Thanos. Tony, Steve, and Natasha are still alive. How would things play out in the past? In this timeline, while Hulk had a tantrum over his hate for stairs, Loki took the Tesseract and left, and nobody would know where he is. Tony might build even more suits, as his near-death experience and Loki's disappearance might have influenced him. He'd likely get rid of the splinters in his chest 1 year earlier. Thor would have to return to Asgard empty-handed, which could anger Odin. When the Dark Elves arrive, there is no Loki to tell them where Thor is, and so Frigga doesn't die. Thor and Jane still defeat Malekith. Hydra would at one point tell secret informations concerning their operation to Captain America, as they believe that he is one of them. Captain America, who was not a part of them, and Nick Fury used this for their advantage, and he is a double agent. They bust Hydra earlier, someone in 2012 or 2013, and managed to get their hands on the scepter. Pietro and Wanda would never become Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Cap still finds Bucky and would try to make him switch sides, which eventually works. In 2014, Quill wakes up after having been knocked out, and he still takes the orb. Rocket and Groot still capture him, and they all land in prison, where they meet Drax and Wood Escale. But they don't fight Ronan the Accuser, as he isn't sent by Thanos, and so Groot is still alive and there is no intensive to work together, and they split up again. The events of Avengers: Age of Ultron doesn't happen, as Tony never gets visions of the Avengers dying, and thus never creates Ultron, which means Vision 2 doesn't exist. Thor already returned the scepter to Asgard. Without the Battle of Sokovia, the Sokovia Accords never happen, and the Avengers don't split up. Zemo also never becomes a villain. Tony might at one point learn about his parents, but from Steve. Without the airport battle, the Avengers aren't introduced to Ant-Man, Spider-Man, and Black Panther for now. Furthermore, King T'Chaka is still alive. In 2017, Thor returns to Asgard, and Odin is dying and warns him about Hela. When he dies and Hela arrives, she finds the Avengers already waiting for her, and they manage to kill her. Thor then returns to Asgard and becomes king. The events of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man, Homecoming, Black Panther, and Avengers: Infinity War don't happen. Ant-Man and the Wasp doesn't end on a huge cliffhanger, and Scott, Hank, Hope, and Janet continue to explore the multiverse, where they find Kang the Conqueror. Captain Marvel is never called by Nick Fury, and Endgame doesn't happen. Natasha and Tony aren't dead, and Steve isn't old. Spider-Man: Far From Home and No Way Home don't happen with Tony being alive. Falcon and the Winter Soldier also doesn't happen, and without Wanda having her abilities or losing everything, WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness don't happen as well. Thor: Love and Thunder doesn't happen, as Jane wouldn't go to Mjolnir, as it is in Asgard and not on Earth. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 doesn't happen, and Monica doesn't get her abilities, so the Marvels only has two Marvels. In this timeline, a lot of events simply don't happen, with Loki being at the TVA and Thanos and his entire army being dead. This timeline would simply be just more boring. All of these timelines have not as many ripple effects in the MCU as all the previous ones, as all of these happen later in the MCU. Nonetheless, they have their fair share of changes, whether it is half of all Avengers being killed by a chemistry teacher, Loki being alive and well, or the other half saving the universe. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.